It is really lovely to see you all here this evening. Welcome to the second session in the 2025 North Eastern Scotland Safeguarding Conference. We're really glad you're able to join us. We're glad you've been able to come out on an evening, sit in front of a screen this evening, shall I say. We're collaborating this year across 6 districts. So Shetland and Scotland, Newcastle, Darlington, Yorkshire North and East, Yorkshire West and Sheffield. So it's good to see people from around all of those districts and 1 or 2 of you from further afield. It's really lovely to see you here as well. So welcome everybody. We offer you a very warm welcome. Just 1 or 2 points of Zoom housekeeping. If you could keep your microphones on mute through the session, other than when we're in breakout rooms. This just helps prevent the background noise and funny echoes that you can sometimes get on Zoom. We will be using breakout rooms for group discussions. We also have the chat function, which is being well used at the moment as you all introduce where you're from. If you have a question, please add it to the chat. There's various ones of us who are monitoring that. We are recording these sessions, and the links to them and any additional documents will be sent out once we've completed the week. This has happened in the past, and I know the recorded sessions have been quite well used as resources in circuits, not only for people who haven't been able to attend, but have been used quite proactively within circuits. We hope everything runs smoothly. The first session yesterday ran pretty smoothly with technology, which is better than the last time we did this, where the first session was a complete disaster technologically. But we thank you in advance for your patience. If there are any technology hiccups as we go on through the evening. There are chaplains available during the session today. I am one of them, and my phone number is on my name, and James is another, and likewise his phone number is on his name, and the phone numbers will be in the chat as well. If you need anyone to talk to after these sessions, please contact somebody you trust and share what's on your mind. Don't keep things to yourself. There's quite a big team of folk who've put together the sessions this week. I'm not going to introduce everybody because we'll be here for quite a while if I do that. But just to say a huge thank you to my colleague DSOs from around the 6 districts, and the assistant DSOs, and the learning network, and the admins and comms people from the districts as well. So it is quite a team of folk beavering away in the background for these sessions to put all the stuff together, building up to them, as well as smooth running on the night. We're going to start with just a short devotion, and then I will hand over to those who are leading the session. It's a good thing this year that we're focusing on issues around the Justice Seeking Church and the Justice, Dignity and Solidarity work that the church has been doing, and the links with safeguarding. So the prayers that I've been using for the devotions this week are from the Methodist Prayer Handbook, which I might have had something to do with the theme for this year, which picks up on us being a justice-seeking church. So we just pause a moment as we start this evening and pray together. Lord Jesus, May we seek your topsy-turvy kingdom, where the first are last and the weak are strong. As we strive for justice, may we be inspired by your undeserved yet unconditional, all-embracing love. A love that is not constraining or restricting, but which sets us free to accept our imperfections. In your strength and wisdom, help us build relationship with our neighbours where there is equal value and control. Help us respect one another in the knowledge that we are each made in your own image and cherished by you. In this way, Lord, may we foster trust and vulnerable intimacy that allows us to share the joy of learning more about you and knowing you more deeply. Amen. It is lovely this evening to be able to hand over the rest of the session to 3 people, and they will introduce more. Those who are leading the session this evening are reflecting back to us and enabling us to hear the voices of young people across our districts. So it is my pleasure to hand over to Vic, Victoria and Laura, and I will let them introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. So I'm Laura Tunnicliffe, and as you'll see if you've read the chat, I am the ADSO for Yorkshire West and Yorkshire North and East, and also the District Youth Work Coordinator in Yorkshire West. So wearing lots of hats tonight. Vic, you're next on my screen. Let's go with you.
Hi, I'm Vic Loveday. I'm the Children and Youth Coordinator for the Sheffield District.
And I'm Victoria Etherington. Just to confuse you, there's 2 Victorias and 1 Laura. You should try working on the team. We're never quite sure who's doing what. And I am Children's and Youth Ministry Lead in the Yorkshire North and East District.
We do quite a lot of work together, but yeah, it does get very confusing. So our session here tonight, we are bringing you a session titled Stories of Justice. We're using the theme this week as justice, dignity and solidarity, and what that looks like in safeguarding terms. And when we were putting the session together, we thought it would be a good opportunity to hear the voices of some of our young people and to link it to the Justice Seeking Church sort of strategy and that sort of framework. So what does a Justice Seeking Church and safeguarding, how do they interact? Well, I mean, for me, it's a fundamental thing that when we are seeking justice, we are giving a voice to the oppressed, we're giving a platform for those who don't have a voice, we're supporting people, we're looking out for people, we're lifting them up when they are perhaps at their weakest or most vulnerable. And those are kingdom values, aren't they? And also significant values in our safeguarding. If we've got a good safeguarding culture going on, then we are seeking justice and we are looking to lift those who've been harmed in some way, shape or form. For me, this is an integral part of what it means to be church and to be safeguarding in the church. If you want to find out more about the report around the Justice Seeking Church, you can find it on the Methodist Church website, and we will add it to the information link when the videos go up online as well, so you can easily access that. So we're going to start off by hearing from our young people.
Thank you. At 3 Generate, the children and young people are asked in various ways to engage with the idea of what is a justice-seeking church and to share what it means to them. Their responses can be found as part of the 3 Generate report that goes to the Methodist Conference, which you can read at your own time. The important topics they identify time and time again include discrimination against race, gender, climate crisis, climate justice, and providing safe spaces for those who need it, including refugees. We asked some of the young people from around the 7 districts that we have covered what justice means to them, what injustices they see around them, and what the church is or should be doing to challenge these injustices. And here are some of their thoughts.
Justice to me is sticking up for something that's right.
So, what is justice to me? Well, the first thing is it's not equality. The difference between the justice and equality. If you were to give everyone the same thing, that's your equality. But the justice is giving things to people what they need rather than just the same as everyone else. Because you can give a T-shirt to everyone, but there could be someone who don't need a T-shirt and they need something else. That would be the justice, giving them what they need rather than what everyone else has.
To me, justice is simply the abolishment of evil.
I think justice to me means fairness, and I think it's about treating everyone to honest standards.
Some injustices I've seen is racism within my school and violence within my community.
I see people not able to access the things that they need to live a genuinely supported life. I see people not being able to access food or warm housing, and that really makes me sad. But I also see people not being able to access God, which is everywhere, but the understanding that that God cares for them and actually sees them as a person who is worth dealing with and worth spending time with and worth loving is not represented by the way that some of the people in my community are responded to, and that makes me really sad.
Some people in my community have unfortunately been victims to crime and have experienced abuse in their relationship, and yeah, I think those are some of the injustices in my community.
I think the church could create a better environment by really showing Jesus' true love for all people.
I think the church needs to welcome all sorts of people with all sorts of beliefs and different lifestyles, and show them that God is a God of compassion and really loves them and welcomes them as they are.
I think the church could work with more vulnerable people and help them when they need it most.
For me, climate injustice means, in one sense, helping combat the climate crisis and trying to mitigate the effects as much as we can, but also that obviously not everyone is affected by the crisis as equally, so also that us in the West, we have the facilities to help cope with the effects, but other countries don't, so providing them with support and so they can live. And I don't think the church is doing enough. I don't think any industry is doing enough. I think there should be a lot more action and a lot more awareness as well. It's all good and well having like an event once a year, but is it actually going to make big change? No. So we need to do more.
I think the church should maybe work alongside charities that help the vulnerable in their communities and make volunteering more accessible and more known to the people that attend the church.
I think the church could help with refugees by working with more charities that help out with them, because I know that my school did that once and it made a massive impact, and there were loads of goodies that were sent to the charity.
The church can oppose discrimination through being welcoming and inclusive to all its members and anybody who would wish to join. It does not judge anybody who wants to enter into it, and it lets anyone leave at any point at which it wants to. Anybody can come and take communion, and they can refuse it as well. And that's what the church does to oppose discrimination.
Are you gonna pick your
In the world, there will always be discrimination, and especially with the internet, people feel like they have a mask to deflect their views of people's skin colour, race, sexuality, all that. We can't stop discrimination, but what we can do is teach people that it is wrong.
I think the church could oppose discrimination by making sure that everybody knows that they're welcomed in the church, no matter who they are or where they come from. And I think teaching more like on the Good Samaritans and love thy neighbour and stuff.
The downside to having multiple screens is trying to work out where the mouse has gone. Okay, so when we talk about being a justice-seeking church and we think about our stories of justice, we have priorities for justice. So we have God for all, things around poverty, peacemaking, discrimination, refugees, and climate. All of these things have got links to the way we approach our safeguarding as well. God for all, absolutely. God is there for each and every one of us. We want people to be able to find God and to explore what it means to be a follower of Christ. One of the challenges that we often get as DSOs, and one of the challenges that I sometimes think we encounter as youth workers, is this question about, well, if God's for all, why are there restrictions there? But we want everyone to be able to know God and to journey together in a way that's safe, where people are valued, where people are respected, and where people are looking out for each other and not seeking to cause harm to one another. God is not a God that is of the rich and those with plenty of resources. God is there for everyone. Our work around improving the conditions of those in poverty and supporting those most in need in our communities is about bringing God to those people. A God of peacemaking. A God who encourages us to find ways to work together and to look after each other and to seek to work alongside each other rather than be at war with one another. Although there are times when it can come to that. Discrimination is something that we sadly see an awful lot in our churches, in our communities, in society more widely. The Justice Seeking Church strategy calls us to think about how we can challenge discrimination. We have things in place such as our EDI training and our unconscious bias training, and we touch on some of these things when we talk about training in a safeguarding context as well. How can we make sure that we are providing a voice for those who really need it? How can we stand up and challenge those who are being discriminated against or shouted down or who are having their agency removed? This is something that we talk about a lot with young people, is about having agency. How can we speak out for those people who are forced to flee from situations where they're in conflict or where their lives are threatened because of what they believe, or because of where they were born, or because of how they've grown up, because of the community that they live in. How can we stand up and be courageous like Bishop Budd in America has been, calling for leniency, speaking truth to power, and challenging for the people who don't have a voice? And perhaps one of the biggest ones that comes up time and time again is this idea of climate justice. What are we doing to seek justice for those who are living with the biggest effects of the damage that's been done to the climate? A lot of the pollution and things like that that are affecting the world is coming from the West, from the more developed parts of the world, but it's not those areas that are suffering the most from the effects of climate change. How can we be advocates? How can we stand up? How can we encourage and enable our churches, our local communities, our young people and our older people to stand up and speak out for climate justice? Our justice seeking church strategy, our justice, dignity and solidarity strategy are all built around this idea of us standing together and being allies for each other, speaking up for those who can't speak up for themselves. We've heard what some of our young people have had to say about these areas of the work in the church. We're now going to give you a chance to explore those in your groups. Catherine's going to put the questions into the chat before you go anywhere so that you can see them. And what we'd like to invite you to do is to just spend a little bit of time in your breakout room thinking about the things that you see already happening in your local community, your church, your circuit. What does being a justice-seeking church already look like to you? What are the things that you're already doing to champion this this way of working and this way of being together and being an ally? And also, do you think there are any areas that perhaps you don't currently engage with, but you'd like to see your church, circuit, community engage more with? What are some of those things that you think, actually, we're doing really good stuff, but it'd be really good if we could just get our teeth into this particular part of you know, this strategy, and how we can be justice seeking to those around us. So we're going to put you into your breakout rooms. The names of the breakout rooms are the people that we've from our lovely pool. Is there anybody that wants to share any feedback from your conversations? If you want to put something in the chat, you can put something in the chat, or if anybody is happy to feedback verbally, that would be good. Anybody brave enough? Meg.
Right. Okay, I'm just clicking away here. Yes, we had an interesting discussion, and we started off saying that a lot of our churches are very engaged in action, such as food banks, working with refugees, eco church, those kind of things. And then there are some churches where people have moved to the issue of looking at, you know, what are the reasons that people are in poverty? What are the reasons that you know, the issues about climate change? So that difference between the action, which I think is probably a lot more instinctive for a lot of churches, to then thinking about it. But some churches have justice groups and campaign Sundays, and are really always trying to look at those wider issues. But there's always kind of looking at that balance, and also thinking about whether sometimes it is through the action that the church actually gets a hearing, because it's not just standing by while things need to be done. I think the other bit we came to sort of later on was this issue of the importance of voices, of those who are experiencing the difficulties, whether that is survivors, victims and survivors in safeguarding, or people who are themselves in poverty, and thinking about how important it is to hear those voices, because that also helps to make real the actions and the policies and things that they're doing. But also sometimes it might also be a situation where somebody actually isn't appreciative of what the church is doing, because in a way, if you have to depend on a food bank, there's no dignity, or it might not feel like there's any dignity. I'm not saying that's always the case. Always just understanding that being in a position of privilege to be able to do these kind of things, it may not always be the best thing to do because of the impact that that has on those who are receiving it. That's a very quick summary.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple of comments in the chat. I think Victoria's going to read them to us, and then we'll come to you, Rachel, if that's okay. Pick up a couple of things from the chat and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, so Graham Jones from his group has pointed out the importance of partnership, and that church doesn't have a monopoly on these issues, and questioning what people mean by the word justice and whether or not it's got intonations of punishment from the justice system. We've then got Rachel has said, good conversations about eco-church and climate justice. Lots of activities that are stuff-based rather than people-based, which could be something to do with fear, but could also do with much more in terms of advocacy and political action. Oh, Graham again. His group have commented, focusing on one or two things that we can do well. I think that's a really good point about being careful and not spreading ourselves too thin. Carla has written, oh, disappeared. The many and varied ways church is involved in communities with individuals seeking to ensure that people are treated with dignity. I think sometimes we overlook what we already do, don't we, in churches? Mark has commented, again, the initiatives that are already going on: food banks, soup kitchens, toddler groups, asylum projects, new places for new people. And again, it's that whole thing. We already do quite a lot. Sometimes it's important to recognize that. From a safeguarding perspective, he's noticed, he makes a comment about being trauma informed. And yeah, it's a broad agenda. Churches can only do what they can do.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Rachel said, church often confuses peacemaking with keeping the peace.
We get that a lot in training, don't we, Victoria? When we get, but the church is nice. Yeah, but being nice doesn't mean that we just let stuff go.
Yeah, lots of people commenting they had really good conversations in different areas. Oh, the need to lobby our MPs. Can't keep up with you all. Referencing the practices of justice, which help us think about how to be as justice seekers, how to be with, not for. I think that's really important because, yeah, otherwise we risk exerting power over people. And then a comment from Sue about the church being a place where young people can ask the church to support them or help tackling issues. That's always my dream for church. Imagine if church was a place where a young person went, I have this mental idea, I know I'll go to church and get them to help me. Absolutely. Rachel, do you want to?
Rachel Vaughan.
Hi, yes, I was just going to feedback verbally from my group. So a lot of it's already been said, but we were kind of thinking, oh, well, we only do little things. And then we're thinking, actually, do you know what? These little things are something to celebrate. Just, your warm spaces, your kind of collection for the local food bank or for homeless charities and stuff. And so the importance of celebrating the little things, just bigging up young people as well, in terms of we can get as older Christians, we can get a bit complacent, but actually hearing what the young people are saying, it's just like so bang on, and thinking about how we want more young people in the church, and the value of intergenerational working as well, rather than young people being siloed and older people being over here working together. We had they were talking about the really positive example of the divestment of pensions from fossil fuels being something that had been really driven by young people. And that's just a great example of an issue that was listened to. And then even though it was dead awkward and people were a bit nervous about, pensions losing money and blah, 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 was something that we listened to felt was important, and it happened and it changed, and just how exciting that was as an example. And finally, we talked a bit about culture. We talk about safeguarding of culture and this whole like, oh, well, it couldn't happen here in safeguarding, but there's also something to be said about that, about discrimination. So we might think, oh, well, it couldn't happen here. You know, people from the global majority would feel comfortable in our church, or of course, women feel fine in our church. But actually being open to the fact that people in churches are experiencing discrimination, and it can and probably is happening in our churches as well. So being attuned to that and calling it out.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of other interesting comments in the chat as well, and then we'll come to Esther. We've got something about the value of hearing local stories. We've got a recognition about the difficulties of doing new things in church because people are tired and they're struggling. We appreciate that. And obviously part of conversations like this is hopefully that we can encourage and you know, uplift people and give them something different to think about. But absolutely, it's hard work, isn't it, sometimes? I need to reduce the stigma around poor or ill mental health, helping people to upskill. I do love Sue's comment. We need to be more non-conformist and not accepting the status quo. Let's get back to our Methodist roots. We're a non-conformist movement. Let's do it. Absolutely. Some more examples from Margaret about things that are going on around there. Some things about identifying political ideas and issues that underpin a lot of the work that's done in churches. You know, and a comment that young people are interested in this stuff and want to be involved in the action. Absolutely. And I think the conversations that we have at 3Generate show that actually time and time again, you know, these are the things that young people are feeling really powerful about. And actually, this can be a really good way of building relationships between our churches and our young people. Esther.
Hello. We in my group we were exactly talking about that, how young people want to get involved in stuff. But I just thought it was worth flagging up. Like, we were talking about how amazing some of the things they said was, and how mature and how aware they are of what's happening around the world in a way that I definitely wasn't in my when I was 16, 17. But actually, it's just worth recognizing and kind of reminding ourselves regularly that what they see on a screen when someone is hurting, when they see injustice, is exactly the same. And I'm sorry to my group because I already said this then, but is exactly the same as whether they're looking at somebody that they know is in the next street or whether they're looking at somebody on a different continent. The hurt is the same and the way that they feel it is the same. So for us, it can end up sounding a little patronizing. I said it myself of, oh, I think they such mature answers, they're so aware. And then I thought it through and I was like, well, of course they're aware. That's their normal. Everybody on a screen looks the same distance away, therefore they feel it in the same way. So we should be encouraging them to fight, but we should also be supporting them in doing that. Sorry for my rant.
No, absolutely, rant away. We like we can cope with ranting like that. Absolutely, yeah. And these are really good ways of us engaging with our young people in our communities. Of course, it would be very remiss of me with all my hats on to not throw in there about making sure that we're doing it in a safe way. That underpins all of the work we do, doesn't it? But yeah, absolutely. There's so many ways that we can live out our justice-seeking church practices, and also involve our communities, and particularly our younger members of our communities, in some of that stuff that we're doing. Excellent. Okay, so is there anything else that anybody else wants to feed into the conversation? We've kind of summarised the stuff in the chat. Catherine's going to work her magic with the chat as well, so that will also be available for people to be able to see what's going on. And that will be, I think that'll be available from the website afterwards. And we should probably say at this point that unfortunately we lost Vic partway through the breakout room bit, and I don't know whether she managed to get back on properly or whether she's still having tech issues. But yeah, that's why you've got me and Victoria. Just the two of us. Oh, there we go. Vic's back. Hi, Vic. Yeah. So thank you for your engagement with this conversation, and hopefully it's the start of wider conversations. As we've said before, as some of the groups picked up on, it's important when we're talking about this stuff to recognise the stuff that we're doing, and the stuff that we're doing well. But it's always good to have that conversation about, this is what we're doing and it's going really well, and do we want to carry on with this, or is there something else, or, you know, and think about how we can draw our communities and particularly our young people in. We've heard from the snippets that we had earlier on that they are very passionate about justice, and being involved in that sort of stuff, and have some very definite ideas about how the church can be involved in that. If anybody wants the transcripts from those snippets, because there were a couple of them where the background noise was really loud, let me know and I'll make sure that's available for Catherine as well to put on the website. And I think that is just about us done for this evening. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for engaging. It's always hard to gauge how much feedback or whether we might have any questions or anything, isn't it, when we're putting one of these on? So we've got a couple more sessions coming up. We've got one tomorrow morning, which is Stories of Dignity. And we've got Stories of Solidarity coming up on Thursday afternoon. So if you've not already signed up and you want to join us, the Zoom link is the same for the whole week. And yeah, so just a thank you to Victoria and Vic for being my lovely glamorous co-hosts this evening. Let's close together in a short prayer. Almighty and loving God, we seek to be a church that speaks out for justice, that gives a voice to the voiceless. We know we don't always get it right, but we know we've come a long way along that journey already. Help us to not be complacent. Help us to recognise the things that we're doing well, but help us to be aware of the places where we could improve our engagement. Give energy to those faithful servants around. Help us to find ways of engaging with existing projects outside our doors. Fill us all with your love and your peace, that we can continue to be your justice-seeking, non-conformist movement. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, everybody. And if anybody wants